All right, you know what they say, better late than never. We're going to do the week 9 preview. Couple good questions going in this week. The playoff picture might get a little clearer or it might get a little muckier. Will Devin win his ninth in a row? Um, you know, Dan Evans is hoping no. Um, I said I was going to do Jason Calder as the game of the week this week, but I didn't look ahead. I didn't plan it that well because he's playing Yip, and Yip was game of the week against Devin last week. So I'm going to switch it up. And for game of the week, we're going to go with Graham versus Drew. Both teams sitting at 4-4. Both teams lost last week. Graham's lost two in a row. So here we go. Quarterback matchup in that one should be interesting. Lamar Jackson for Drew going against New England defense. So do you hope for your fantasy quarterback or do you hope for your favorite team? Um, I always hope that my fantasy quarterback scores a bunch of points and my favorite team wins by one because fantasy football, who cares about defense? Um, and wins. That's all that really matters. Graham's got to run out Philip Rivers this week against Green Bay. Green Bay can be got. Phillips had a couple 300-yard games in a row, so maybe the Chargers. I almost called them the Clippers, but maybe the Chargers are turning it around. But either way, how do you go against Lamar Jackson in that matchup? He's been great. He's got a good rushing baseline, so I think he's got the advantage over Phil Rivers. But don't be surprised if New England defense forces a few turnovers and negates that rushing. Running back's gonna be interesting in this one because you got the two main runners on the team. Christian McCaffrey for Graham is a stud, uh, and Le'Veon Bell, who Drew just traded for. So obviously he likes him, and he's got Miami this week. So as long as Adam Gase isn't an idiot, which we know he is, but if he decides to give Le'Veon the bell more than a couple times, Le'Veon Bell the ball more than a couple times this week, he could have a pretty good matchup. Um, I'll never bet against CMC in any of those, but I wouldn't be shocked if Le'Veon Bell outperformed him. The other running backs in the matchup, you got Marlon Mack for Graham, and Sony Michelle for Drew. Uh, Baltimore's rush defense is suspect. Um, Pittsburgh's got a really good defense, so I give the edge in that one to Sony only because I think he could score. Mack's gonna get he's got a really good offensive line, but they're going against a really good defense. So, um, overall, I'd say the advantage. I'll put the advantage on Graham just in the running back category, um, for the simple fact that Christian McCaffrey, right, number one player in fantasy this year. Wide receivers, both missing their big guys this week. So Graham doesn't have Michael Thomas this week, and Drew doesn't have Julio Jones. But for Graham, he's running out Michael Gallup. Some idiot dropped Michael Gallup into the free agent pool when he was injured, thinking he could pick him back up, but Graham beat him to him. Um, so Gallup's got a really good matchup this week, and he doesn't have to go against Janoris Jenkins. He'll be on Amari Cooper. So down week last week for Gallup's or last game for Gallup against the Eagles. So maybe he bounces back. He's been really good this year. And then you got on the other side, you got Allen Robinson, who's having a great year. Um, his biggest problem is not the corners he's going to face. He's going to draw Ronald Darby or Jalen Mills. But for Philly, problem is Mitch Trubisky sucks really bad. So I don't know if he can get Allen Robinson the ball, he could have a good day. Um, Other wide receivers in the matchup, you got Cortland Sutton, who's been great so far this year. He's been really taking a step up, but will he continue that trend with some guy named Brandon Allen or something like that as his quarterback instead of Joe Flacco? Not that Flacco's amazing, but Allen's a backup rookie or third year player who hasn't got a shot yet. So maybe he leans on Cortland Sutton. Um, and then you got Sterling Shepard. So Graham's got wide receivers on both sides of the ball going in the Dallas New York game. So Shepard may be back. Um, so we'll see. Um, Otherwise, for other flex matchups, you got Ronald Jones against Seattle. Who knows who Bruce Arians is going to give the carries to? It could be Ronald Jones. Danny Amendola against Oakland. So in the wide receiver matchup, I like the advantage going to Drew, but that's expecting Cortland Sutton to get the same as he had been getting. Um, I prefer Robinson, Amendola, and Sutton versus Shepard, Gallup, and I'll say flex is Ronald Jones. So I prefer that matchup. Um, so wide receiver Drew, tight end is frustrating. It's Zach Ertz, who should be. What happened to Zach Ertz? So Zach Ertz for Drew versus Evan Ingram. Ertz has been out there a lot, but he doesn't seem to score. I think he could score against Chicago, but Evan Ingram for New York has been good for Graham. So tight end advantage goes to Graham. Kicker advantage goes to Graham. How much is New York really going to score against Dallas? Whereby Minnesota should be able to score on Kansas City. So Bailey had 15 points last week for Graham. So let's see. He should have an advantage over Rosas, who had 1 point last week for Drew. Defensive lines are going tonight. So it actually just started. So by the time this preview is over, somebody may be way up on someone else, or Breida might have scored a crap load of points on my bench, and I might be slamming the keyboard. Anyway, Chandler Jones versus Buckner. I would say Chandler Jones. Problem is Arizona's offensive line sucks, so he could be. Buckner will have. I'll give Buckner the advantage because of the matchup. I'd rather have a guy going against Arizona's O line than a guy going against San Francisco's. Linebackers is tackle machines. Blake Martinez for Green Bay versus Schobert for Cleveland. I like Schobert with a little bit of advantage in this one because I think Denver, to help out their rookie quarterback, will run the ball a lot. And defensive backs are a couple of safeties that get a lot of tackles. Poyer for Buffalo against Washington, and Bethea. I'll give the advantage to Bethea on that one. Looking down at potential people that could make their way into the lineup. Graham didn't play Larry Fitzgerald. He could play Tucker, a kicker. Could play Corey Davis in a flex spot over Ronald Jones, or could play Duke Johnson. But more than likely, he's going to stick with his lineup unless Sterling Shepard doesn't play. Those guys don't seem to be super duper inspiring. But don't count out Corey Davis just yet. It was one bad week with Tannehill, one good week, so you never know. Over on the other side, you got Kenny Stills, deep threat for Houston. Oh, geez, I just forgot his name. White, running back for James White, running back for New England. He's probably not going to double up on New England running backs. It's not a PPR game. Robbie Anderson is a wild card to get put into Drew's lineup. So I'd say, looking at it, I would say the bench advantage probably goes to Drew. But saying that, I think that Graham is going to win this matchup. Right now, it's pretty close, but I do think Graham pulls this matchup out, and mainly on the back of CMC. He's going against a really tough defense again. So, anyway, so that's my pick. Graham this week for that matchup. Moving to the next matchup is me against Hahn. So obviously I'm picking Hahn. His guys are due. I mean, I can't think of a better matchup for all Hahn's guys. They're pretty much loving it. You got key players for Hahn. How do you not make Mike Evans a key player after putting up 30-some points last week? What a super stud. And the other one's going to be Manny Sanders going tonight. Does Manny Sanders get followed around by Patrick Peterson? Probably not. But he will see him a little bit. And my key players are going to be Derrick Henry. I just acquired him from Hahn. Really, I should have made it Derrick Henry and Christian Kirk, but Hahn took Christian Kirk out of the lineup. So, revenge game for Derrick Henry. The other key for me is going to be Devonta Adams. The key is going to be whether or not he plays. If he plays, great. If he doesn't, I guess we're pulling someone off the bench. So those will be my two key players. Positional matchup that I'm going to watch in this one. Um, I'm going to have to say quarterback. Deshaun Watson is number one quarterback overall for the year, but he's going against a tough Jacksonville defense in London. Does what's going to happen over there? Who knows? They're playing at Wembley. Can anyone even keep their feet? Um, then I got Jameis Winston on the other side going against Seattle. So Seattle's defense, they can be had on the pass. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So it'll really depend on Jameis throwing the ball. If they're going to win that matchup, and he could put up a big day. So the Winston Evans stack is real big for Hahn. My stack is big too, but it's not. Darren Fells and Deshaun Watson isn't the same level as Mike Evans and Jameis. So anyway, like I said, I'm picking Hahn. He's due for a big win. It's unfortunate that it's going to come at my expense, but I mean, I'm too big of a favorite. I'm an 18-point favorite on NFL.com. That is a recipe for disaster. Then you got undefeated Devin going against Dan Evans. So straight catch homie against the Chub Chub train. I love that name. Keys for Dan are going to be Carson. He wasn't going to put Kyler Murray out there against that San Francisco defense, that's for sure. So Carson going against Chicago. So Chicago's not as scary as they were, but if the Eagles get Deshaun Jackson back, you never know. But Wentz has a tough matchup this week. Other key for Dan's going to be Terry McLaurin. So McLaurin's been a great rookie wide receiver this year, but he's going against Buffalo, so he's probably going to draw Tre'Davious White. And not only that, his college quarterback might be throwing the ball, but Haskins has been brutal in spot starts. So those are the key. I mean, if Terry McLaurin has a good day against Buffalo, then Dan's got a shot. So for Devin, keys are obviously the Chub Chub train. He's been great for Devin, but this will be the first week. No, Hunt's not back yet. So Chubb should get the workload in Denver. It'll be interesting to see what happens in week 10. But for now, Chubb. And the other key for Devin's going to be Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews going against New England. They're pretty good. I mean, I've already talked about them once. So he's got a real tough matchup. But holy crap, Arizona's in the lead. Who would have seen that coming? So Chubb and Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews was real good to start the season, but he's tapered off a little bit since. So can Lamar Jackson get him the ball back? Drew sure hopes he can, but we'll see how Mark Andrews does. In terms of positional matchup, I'm going to watch Amari Cooper against the Giants against DeAndre Hopkins. So Hopkins has to go over and deal with A.J. Bouye, but for the first time in a while playing the Jaguars, he won't have to face Jalen Ramsey. So will Hopkins go off? Great question. Amari Cooper should. Janoris Jenkins hasn't been good this year. That's probably why nobody traded for him. But that'll be an interesting one. So right now, I'm not going to pick against Devin in this matchup. He's 8-0. Dan could beat him. Anybody could beat anybody. But I'm gonna stick with Devin this time. So right now I got Graham and Graham over Drew and Han obviously against me and Devin. I got to keep repeating them so I don't have the same thing happen at the end of the episode where I go, did I pick Graham? I don't remember. Maybe I picked Graham. I don't know. Couple of losers from last week heading off in the next matchup is Deke, who's on a 2-game losing streak. Lost to a super handsome guy. His quarterback's already playing against Matty Ice. Matty Ice might have left. Yeah, I sure did. Left David Johnson in his lineup. Game time decision. Hasn't looked like playing all week, and he's in there. So advantage Deke right off the bat because your number one running back is not playing, 0 points. Not a very handsome decision. What's interesting in this matchup is you got Matty Hairdo, super handsome, going against Jimmy Garoppolo, probably the most handsome man in the NFL, next to Cam Newton. Maybe that Tom Brady guy. But Jimmy Handsome versus Matty Handsome. That'll be interesting to see who wins this matchup. So, key players, obviously, David Johnson's not a key player for Matt. But Chris Godwin, happy Halloween, against Seattle. Can he continue his strong season? He's been really good this year. And I'll say Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has been disappointing, to say the least, over the last little while. But, I think that, excuse me, I think he's due. I think Keenan Allen is definitely going to get back into the swing of things. But we will see. So for those two, you got a couple of great wide receivers going at it. For Derek, the keys are going to be Austin Eckler against Green Bay. I guess I should have made Melvin Gordon a key player for me, but whoever calls the plays now for San Diego, LA Chargers, what's he going to call? Is Eckler going to start getting the rock again, or are they going to stick with trying to run out Melvin Gordon before he becomes a free agent? So Eckler's one key, and the other key is going to be DJ Moore against Tennessee. Tennessee is a tough matchup. DJ Moore is a good wide receiver, and he's getting a lot of targets. So it'd be interesting if Kyle Allen cannot throw up a stinker against a good defense, because the last 2 times he's played good defenses, he hasn't been good. So DJ Moore and Austin Eckler. The key matchup, I will say, is probably quarterback. You get Jimmy G going against Aaron Rodgers. Aaron's been a stud the last little while. But the other interesting one for me, they're not the same position, but the main player on the team is Saquon Barkley against that good Dallas defense and Tyreek Hill against that Minnesota defense. So, speaking of which, did you guys see that McCole Hardman, the rookie for Kansas City, says he thinks he could beat Tyreek Hill in a 100-meter dash? Tyreek Hill commented on it with a gif of somebody laughing their head off. So I think in the offseason you might have a who can throw the ball farther between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and a who can run faster between teammates McCole Hardman and Tyreek Hill. But we'll see. I would have given Matt the advantage in this one, and thinking that he's going to win. But playing an active running back as your running back position, it's tough to win that way. But so I'm gonna go with Derek. I might go 0-6 this week, but I'm gonna stick with Derek on this one, which would mean that Matt would fall back and Derek would move up. So I think they'd be tied if that were to happen. So you got a lot of that might clinch the playoffs for Devin if I lose, and if me, Rich, and Matt were to lose and Devin were to win, I think he'd be in for sure. But anyway, so I'm looking at a second straight loss for Matty Ice, unfortunately. Although last week he barely got anything from David Johnson, he still scored 137 points. So I could be really wrong. But I said it out loud, so I'm going to stick with it. Next one, Rich against Danny, and this one's interesting because Danny needs to go on a streak, and he's got his number one guy back, Drew Brees, but Drew Brees is on a bye. So he's playing Garden Minnow. Garden Minnow's got a great matchup. Houston just lost J.J. Watt. He's going across the pond. He's got his jorts lined up to wear, and he's ready to go. So it'll be interesting to see if Minshew can throw down. The other key player is Jordan Howard against Chicago. So revenge game narrative. Howard's been great for Philly this year. I really hope they re-sign him. But anyway, he's going into Chicago, and you know, do the Eagles want to stick it to Matt Nagy, who's, even though he says he's not an idiot, I think he's an idiot. Um, so Jordan Howard going in there, I think he's going to have a really good day. Over for Rich, who put up 1 billion points last week. Um, his key players, I'm going to throw out Kenny Galladay against Oakland. Kenny's been great this year. And Oakland's been giving up lots of points to the wide receiver, and Matty Stafford's been throwing the ball a ton. So I'm going with Kenny Galladay, and I'm going with Mark Ingram. So if Mark Ingram, again, if Baltimore's going to win in New England, they're going to do it on the back, on the legs of Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson. So that's a tough matchup, but he's going to have to do well, and he's going to have to score for Rich. You'd think I would have made Tevin Coleman a key player. So I'll say that the running back battle, even though the running back position is Dalvin Cook against Kansas City, he's going to put up a bunch of points. But I'm going to say Philip Lindsay versus Tevin Coleman. Lindsay has been losing snaps to Royce Freeman, which is great for my team, but bad for Danny's. But Tevin Coleman put up a ton of points last week, and he's going against that crappy defense. Still losing 7-0 though. So Tevin Coleman against Philip Lindsay is the position I'm going to watch. But saying that, I think Rich is going to win the matchup. I think he's proven that his team can put up a bunch of points, and that some of us just happened to get him on a week he didn't put up 160. So I think Rich wins this one. And the final matchup of the week is the Bills collector, Jason Calder, everybody's favorite hero, against Mike Yip. So, Yip making me eat my crow and putting Mostert back in his lineup against Arizona. He is playing this week, even though he didn't practice all week, so he's playing. He could stick it to me. And Calder, he's putting Herndon back in his lineup. He's limited. He might play this week. Who knows? But that's enough of that. Key players for Yip are Leonard Fournette. No, we're going to make that the positional battle to watch. Leonard Fournette against Aaron Jones. I mean, those are the two best players on these two teams. Because Cooper Kupp's on a bye, but Aaron Jones has been lightning in a bottle, and Leonard Fournette has 1 touchdown and is like the number 5 running back on the year versus guys with 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. So Fournette has just been great. And Aaron Jones is a touchdown machine. So that's going to be the positional battle to watch. Key players in this matchup for Yip is going to be Adam Thielen coming back, and Trent Williams. Sorry, not Trent Williams. He's a left tackle. Tyrell Williams. So 2 wide receivers. Oakland's going to have to throw it to keep up with Detroit, and Tyrell seems to catch a touchdown every time he plays. Adam Thielen coming back from the concussion. They're going against Kansas City. They might run it all day long. So it'll be interesting to see how much Thielen is involved, and if Minnesota decides to run it all day long, Yip's going to have a hard time because he's got Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen running out this week. Unless somehow with his freaky knees, Patrick Mahomes plays this week and Yip decides to put him in. Key players for the Bills collector are going to be John Brown against Washington. He should eat this week. Washington sucks. Mark Walton. Who's Mark Walton, you might say? He is the running back who got cut from the Cincinnati Bengals because of legal issues in the offseason. And I didn't think Cincinnati cut anybody who got arrested. I thought they gave them more money. So Mark Walton went to Miami, and he's now the starter. He's going up against the Jets defense, so he's the other key for Jason. You know, if Calder wins this matchup, he's 1 game under 500. I did call him making the playoffs. If he gets to 7 wins, he could get in. Think about that. Last year, He won his first game of the year and only game of the year in week 13. And he's already beat me, and he beat Matty Ice, and he beat someone else. I can't remember who, but call it this time in a couple of weeks' time. Calder could be right in the thick of things or in a playoff spot. You never know. So it all starts this week. I'm going back to the well. I'm picking Calder again. Picking him to go to 4-5. Picking him because I don't think Minnesota's going to throw the ball that much. So Calder it is. So to recap my picks this week, if I can scroll up, in the game of the week, I got Graham over Drew. In my game, I obviously have Hahn over. Oh, he's already in the lead. Whew, he's up 0.9 to 0. I say that, and then Sanders will probably go off. But so I've got Hahn over me. I've got the Chub Chub train going to 9-0. I've got Deke over Matty Ice, and I've got Rich to win again, and I've got the Bills collector to win again. So it's going to be an interesting week. I'm probably the least confident in this week's picks that I have been since I started picking that I can remember. So I'll probably go 6-0. And if I go 6-0, it means I lost. So I won't be happy about it. But what are you going to do? So anyway, happy Thursday night. Happy Halloween. Happy week 9. Let's get to work. So just remember, take the inactive players out of your lineup. You got a better chance of winning. And if women don't find you handsome, Matt doesn't have that problem. There's always fantasy for the rest of us.